Hi all, in the last day of my little homage of the Chessable Masters analyst, I'm showing a game of Peter Svidler with the black pieces against Levon Aronian. The game was played in the 2006 Tal Memorial and it reminded me of a game between Liren and Magnus Carlsen from the Chessable Masters semifinal this year. So I thought it would be fitting to show this game. At the time of play, Peter was the number 3 in the world, rated 2750, together with Vladimir Kramnik, and Levon was the number 7 in the world, rated 2741. The top 3 in the world were complemented by Vishwanathan Anand in second place, rated 2779, and in first place there was Veselin Topalov, rated 2813. Funny fact is that Magnus Carlsen, who was 16 years old at the time of play, was the number 21 in the world, rated 2698. And in the current day, the 16-year-old boy wonder Alireza Firouzja is also the number 21 in the world, but he's rated 2728. So lots of similarities between those two. But with that said, let's get into this game. The game is from round 3, so let's get started. Levon opens with d4. We have knight to f6, so the Indian game. c4, g6, knight to c3, so we have the king's Indian. d5 in the Grunfeld defense, and bishop to g5, the Stockholm variation. We have knight to e4. After knight e4 you could opt to capture the knight, but Levon opts to play bishop to h4. We have takes and takes on c3, and now grabbing the pawn on c4. So currently, Peter is a pawn up. e3, attacking the pawn, and bishop to e6, defending the pawn. We have queen to b1 now, attacking the b7 pawn. And while you could play something like b6 to defend, Peter opted to play queen to d5. Very active defense of the b7 pawn. With knight to f3 now and knight to d7. Bishop e2, bishop f5 now, and queen to b2. Just keeping an eye on that b7 pawn. Bishop to g7, preparing to castle. A castle by white, and now knight to b6, just blocking this view from the queen while defending this pawn. A very nice move by Peter. With a4 now, trying to kick the knight away, and a5 now. That idea blocked by Peter. We have knight to d2 now, with ideas of attacking the pawn. So the pawn's now attacked twice and defended twice. And you could argue that maybe queen e2 is coming, then the pawn will fall. So already Peter decided to play bishop d3, and after takes and takes, the pawn is now on d3. But here it is much harder to defend by Peter. So we have rook f to b1 now, and queen to c6. Maybe there was an idea of getting the knight here, knight to c5, or perhaps just with the queen going to b5 and pushing the c4 pawn. Who knows? We have queen to c6, and now queen to a3 with an idea of attacking the e7 pawn. There's now a checkmate in one thread. We have castles by Peter, and c4. There are some, if you want to defend this, it's very difficult. If you want to defend it like maybe queen e6 or queen d7, then white is just better after you can play a c4, and yeah, you're in trouble here. Because you cannot castle, and if you don't castle, but you want to play something like this, you still can't castle because the queen blocks it prevents it from castling. And after something like f6, you just pick up the pawn here, and white is in a much better position. So after queen to a3, Peter played just castle, and Levon played c4 immediately, just with the idea of grabbing this pawn Probably better was taking the pawn e7 with the bishop, and after the bishop moves, you can play something like this. And well, now there's lots of options possible. This pawn is gonna fall for sure, so he should have grabbed this pawn while he had the chance. But he played c4 immediately, um, and we have knight to c4, knight to c4, queen to c4, and now bishop to e7, rook e8, and rook to d1 now, putting pressure on the pawn. If you grab here, this is not gonna end well. After you do something like this, you have to. There's just a threat of just queening, so you have to defend this somehow. And yeah, this is just the rook is following. This is just looking very unpleasant for white. So he didn't grab the pawn on b7, but he focused on the pawn on d3. So black played rook to c8 now, and before you can capture the pawn on d3, you have to make sure your bishop isn't hanging. So Levon played bishop to g5, and now c5 by Peter. We have takes on d3, c takes on d4, and we have e takes on d4. And unfortunately for Levon, this just completely blundered the game. So try to find the winning move by black, by Peter. If I give you a couple of seconds, and keep in mind that it was all of the game between Liren and Magnus Carlsen. So I'm sure you all saw it. It's not very difficult, but it is rook to e1 with check, deflecting the rook from the defense of the queen. So if you take the rook, your queen will fall. And if you don't take the rook, if you move it somewhere to defend the queen, the rook on a1 will fall. So it was in this position that Levon Aronian resigned the game. Um, and just a fantastic win by Peter. And this deflection of the queen, we also saw this in the semifinals between Ding Liren and Magnus Carlsen, as mentioned, where Magnus did the same thing to Ding in what was it, game 3? Well, I'll put a link to the video in the description below. So with that said, I hope you did enjoy the game. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope to see you again in the next one.